Hello, everyone. We will now be starting the third unit, which covers digital manufacturing and integrated output. I'm sure that all of you have created a good social design work before. Now, through this unit, we will have you use your social design project for digital output and integrated independent creation. Now, everyone, each of your design drafts is actually in a 3D space. So, how can we use output mode to make your 3D designs into real models through output devices like laser cutters? Let me introduce a plugin called Face SVG. Through this program, each of you can turn your designs into vector graphics and then output it with a laser cutter. Now we will demonstrate how to download this program on screen. First, you have to select Window at the top. After clicking, find Extension Warehouse underneath. Extension Warehouse shows a selection of plugins. After we click, of course, your computer must be connected to the internet. After we click, there is a search tool on the top. Because there are so many plugins available, we directly enter Face SVG, search for it, and then Face SVG will appear. After clicking it, we can download. Now, it might require you to log in at this point. You can just enter your account. A Google account is also okay. Or you can create an account at Trimble. Trimble is the company that owns SketchUp. Then if you log in, you can download this plugin for free. So we just need to click Install at the bottom. Then it will tell you that you need to confirm you want to download this plugin. Just click Yes. After it's finished, it will tell you that it's been successfully installed. Now we return to the screen here. It looks like nothing has changed, but if you use your cursor to select any part of your 3D model, when you right-click, you will find in the right-click menu that there is now a Face SVG menu. Now, if you want to convert this graphic into a vector graphic, you can simply select Layout SVG Profile in the right-click menu. One side has already been outputted here, and because we actually use the laser cutter to cut out each side, and then assemble a 3D model, you need to convert each face into a vector graphic file. We will now make the second face into an SVG profile. Now, you can output all of the faces as vector graphic files. They will line up on the ground. If you want to export files directly, select the graphics that have been converted into vector graphic files, right-click them, and select Face SVG. But this time, you have to choose Write SVG Profile. Now directly output it as a file. A vector graphic will now be on your desktop. Now you can use any file name you like. This way, your desktop will have a vector graphic file. This file, because it is an SVG file, actually can't be opened by ordinary software. You must use a vector editing software like Adobe Illustrator or software for the 3D laser cutters we have mentioned, which can themselves open vector graphics. Then we can use the laser cutter to cut them out. Okay, everyone, we are going to explain this laser cutter. As the name implies, laser cutters use the power of light concentrated into a laser to cut sheets as we wish. Currently, laser cutters like this have a power rating of about 100 watts. Actually, 100 watts of power is already enough to cut thicker sheets. There wouldn't be any problem. Laser cutters are normally used to cut wood boards, acrylic boards, etc. Laser cutters are not able to cut metal. Basically, we use a sheet to give a brief introduction. First, we can see that there is a power flow rating on the top left side. This rating actually represents the wattage of the laser doing the cutting. If the power is higher, then it can cut thicker material. But on the surface, for instance with wood, the burnt parts might be a bit darker. If the current is not high enough, then there might be some places that are unable to be cut through. So for sheets of different thicknesses, we can change the power setting. Also, here you can raise and lower the height of the sheet. Why would we make a height adjustment? Because actually, the laser emitter and the surface being cut need to be 12 millimeters apart. That is the focal point of the laser. So now, no matter how thick or thin the sheet is, you need to set the distance between the emitter and the sheet to 12 millimeters. So this is why you need to make height adjustments. In a moment, we will use the vector graphic that we outputted from Face SVG with this laser cutting software and explain to everyone how to do this. Now, let's start with the laser cutter software. First of all, we press Input in File. Here we can start from the 4 Face SVG files we have exported. That is the vector graphics files. Select them and click Input. Then a ruler will appear. Let's move them in. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Because these 4 files are the faces of a 3D model that was designed by a student, so after outputting it, these 4 faces can be put together to make a 3D shape. Let's shrink them first. We'll put them on the screen separately. Because our laser cutter is longer from left to right, and our sheets are also longer from left to right, we need to arrange the shapes in a level and long horizontal arrangement. Why do we add an outer border? Because the laser cutter needs to have an anchor, so it can know what proportion of the sheet is being cut. Our outermost border will create the reference for it. After we have positioned the layout, we can start laser cutting. There is a cutting option here. After you select it, you can see that on this page, there are 4 linear frames. They are the edges of the vector graphics. Once we check it over, we can press Cut. Okay, the laser cutter has already started cutting. It will cut our sheets in the shapes that we design. Okay, the laser cutter is using beams of light that are concentrated to make a laser. Because of this, it is able to cut. It can cut lines into the sheet. At the end, it will have cut out a shape. If the power of the laser cutter is relatively low, it is not actually cutting, but is engraving. This can make something like an engraved seal on our materials. This sort of action, when the power is higher, becomes cutting. A cut goes all the way through. So we can see that while it is cutting, the speed of its movements actually have a certain speed power setting. On our surface, there are in fact some burn marks. This time as well, if the material you're cutting is easily flammable, like paper, then you can't set the power too high. Otherwise, its surface might catch on fire. Because we positioned the 4 vector graphics, the cutter is actually very precise. It will cut according to the way we positioned them. So laser cutting is very precise. And the surface of the sheets will actually be pretty clean. Now, it is cutting out the outer border. We can change the settings so this outer border won't be cut, because the outer border is just used for positioning. just now because we didn't set it to not cut, so now at the end it is still cutting out the outer border. Basically, laser cutter tubes only have a finite lifespan. So really, if you regularly use it, then you will eventually have to replace them at the end of their lifespans. So sometimes things like this outer frame don't need to be cut. Okay, everyone, now the laser cutter has finished cutting. Let's look at our result. We have cut out a few small pieces. Let's pick them out. These small pieces were created by a student in a 3D modeling software. Then we used the vector software Face SVG to pull out each face of the model, and then used our laser cutter to cut them out. So now, if we glue them together, we can, with these faces, recreate the 3D shape, and it can accurately represent the models that each of you have designed. So actually, while doing design, many different output devices can be used, including 3D printers or laser cutters. I hope that you all have a chance to use these various output methods in the future. Hello everyone! Apart from laser cutters, digital maker, and integrated outputs, let's also include another very important tool: 3D printers. 3D printers actually take the shapes we design and print them with 3D printing. So how do we output our designs through 3D printing? We have to make a file transformation, which also uses a plugin software. How do we proceed? Let's go into the program. How do we download the plugin? Similarly, we will start from the window menu at the top and select Extension Warehouse. We choose Extension Warehouse. Once we enter this window, in the same way we use the search tool at the top, let's search for STL. The reason why you should search for STL is that 3D printers can read STL files. So we need to transform the SKP files of SketchUp into an STL file format. That way, they can be printed by a 3D printer. There are so many programs that appear when we search for STL. Let's choose SketchUp STL. After we click in, we need to log on just like before. Then we can download the program. Let's install it. After it is installed, it will tell you that it has successfully downloaded. At this point, nothing appears to be different on our screen, but actually, the file menu on the top left now has an Export STL option. This lets us take our SKP file types and export them as STL files. After we click in, two menus will appear. Actually, we don't need to change anything else. We just have to select Binary at the bottom. After selecting Binary, we can click Export. Here we can directly export it to the desktop. Let's name it 123. After the file has been saved, we can return to the desktop. Now you can see that there is already an STL file called 123 on the desktop. This file can be directly inputted into our 3D printer software. It can be printed with a 3D printer. Hello everyone! We are now going to talk about 3D printers. On my right side is a 3D printer. We can open it up and look at its 3D axes. You can see that this platform can move back and forth, up and down. Also, its nozzle can move left and right, so you can see through its structure that it can move in 3 directions. Through these movements, it can print out the 3D models from our 3D drawings. Actually, 3D printing technology was invented around 1988, but at that time, because of intellectual property rights issues, its price was relatively high. In the past few years, because the intellectual property rights have expired, costs have gone down. So in many markets, there are now cheaper 3D printers available. There are currently two main ways of printing with current 3D printing technology. The first is light cutting, and the second is fused deposition modeling. This printer is a fused deposition modeling printer. Fused deposition modeling uses continuous heating with high temperatures from a nozzle. When heated to a certain degree, it will soften the plastic. After it is softened, the nozzle then shapes the plastic. This fused deposition modeling technology is a very common technique for current 3D printers. But because current fused deposition modeling printing methods are still somewhat slow, instructors that need to print should only print smaller models. For instance, students might design some accessories like figurines or trees. Small pieces like these. We can use a 3D printer to print out such small objects as accessories designed by students. Now we will use the 3D printer software to do a demonstration. To start, we open this 3D model. This is an STL file. After we open it, we can see that this is the 3D model that we want to print. This model can be shrunk. Let's shrink it first. Then we can use automatic placement to put it on this platform. This platform is basically the platform on the 3D printer that we just saw. So by placing it like this and shrinking it, we can make it into the size that we want. The size that we will print it in a moment is pretty much this tall. Next, we are going to print. Now we select 3D print. We have to restart the 3D printer. After we start the 3D printer, there will be an option here. We can now select Print. Now, there are some settings for us to choose. Of course, the quality can be adjusted, normal, fast, or fine. The difference here is that maybe the speed of your printing will change. If you want relatively high-quality 3D printing, then it will print more slowly. You may have to wait a while. This setting adjusts the thickness of the layers. Of course, when each layer is thinner, the printed product will be more detailed. Here, we can just press OK. We can see that here, on the left, it has already started processing. So actually, each layer needs to go through processing. Here it shows that this model will take 25 minutes to print. We just press OK. Now the nozzle and the platform will start to heat. In a moment, after it is heated up, it will start to print on the platform. Through 3D printing, we have printed a small figurine. We can also print larger items, but of course this will take more time. Due to time limitations, we printed a relatively small figurine. Actually, in students' designs, scale is sometimes an important concept. So, through the printing and design of such small figurines, you can create small items to place next to your designs and show what the relative scale of the thing is in the real world. Through printing, we can see that digital media, in our social design projects, can play a role. That's it. Hello, everyone. Through 3 units of study on new media and digital design, we learned basic concepts of design and their relationship with new media. Also, we have seen how we can utilize the concept of social design and digital making and output, including 3D printers and laser cutting. I am sure that through this, all of you have acquired new knowledge and technique. I also hope that each of you in the future can continue to work in design and new media. Although in the future, media might change and evolve, and you might have to continue to study certain aspects and continue to gain new knowledge, I am certain that you definitely gain much from this. Because the present world is one of constant and rapid change, I hope that you continue improving. Let's keep learning together.
我相信各位如果在选择设计跟新媒体的部分的继续学习，一定有很多的成长。对，好，我录着。那另外呢，其实有一个更快的一个量测工具，也就是它的右方，直接就可以选取你要的路径。这个画面不太对，所以你可以再一次。好。首先呢，我们在画面里面，如果你要运用这个 Schedule 的外挂程式。 你必须在上面这个选单里面选择 Extension。啊，对不起，是 Windows，这样被很卡。